But where does the truth lie, and what does this railway budget actually set out to do? We've got Mr. Jayajit Bhattacharya from KPMG joining in to share his insights and his reading of the fine print. Jayajit, great to have you on the show, and thanks for staying with us. So some of the criticism is very evident in the numbers, and I just want to go over some of the numbers for our viewers' benefit. Itself, plan expenditure for FY16 has come down by 18%, from 1 lakh crore rupees. It's down to 82,100 odd. There's no denying that. Also on the receipts side, whether you're looking at passenger receipts, whether you're looking at freight receipts, there is a growth of just 4 to 5%. They're targeting a growth of 10% for FY17. How much of this is realistic, and how do you sum up the railways finances for FY16?
I think all the points that you mentioned are definitely points of concern. The passenger receipts increasing by just 4 to 5%, and the total number of passengers falling down is a matter of concern. The first issue that you mentioned in terms of planned expenditure, that is not necessarily an issue in terms of not being able to get the funding, but it's more of a capacity of the railways to be able to execute. Do keep in mind that they jacked up the capital expenditure by 50%, which was audacious. Slipping up on a target which was increased by 50%, I don't think it's too much of a concern in that reason. Because it takes time to build up the capacity to execute. I strongly believe that moving forward in the current financial year, the railways would be able to execute the kind of targets that they're putting in. So the 1,25,000 crore of capital expenditure that they're targeting, I'm confident that they will be able to reach near about the target in order to execute. The question is that how will they really tie up the finances? Where will the source of finances be? I think those details needs to be looked at. Obviously, in a 40-minute speech, it's difficult to get into all of those details, but I do hope that the finances are tied up. There were a few innovative mechanisms of financing that was mentioned. The minister talked about rupee bonds, essentially the masala bonds of institutional financing. They talked about funding from LIC. And so on and so forth. I do hope that part is taken care of, and if the financing is taken care of, I'm pretty confident that the rest of the story does make sense. And I think the good part that we saw in this budget was it was more driven by policies. There was no announcement of trains going from one random place to another random place. It talked about policies of how new kinds of trains will be there, what their speed limits will be, what the philosophies of each of those trains will be. There definitely again was an issue that some of those trains looked like a repackaged existing product, but I'm sure there are more details to it than was expressed in the short period of time that the budget speech talked about. But coming back to my point, there was a lot of policies that were being talked about, and I think that puts in the fundamentals and the basis for moving forward and for transforming the railways. Another important aspect that we noticed overall as the flavor of the budget is that it looked at changing the entire railways, of transforming the railways into modern railways, and not doing it at one shot, but putting in the basis for making the changes. Talking about bullet train per se, it will not have a financial return on the investment, but it does have a very considerable economic return on the investment.
Sure, but allow me to... Jayajit, just allow me to come in over there. I mean, I hear you. You seem to be sounding a little more optimistic about meeting this funding requirement of 1,21,000 crores for FY17. 40,000 crores is coming in as part of the gross budgetary support. 20,000 crores is supposed to be market borrowing. Where else do you think the railways could turn to? I mean, they were looking at Japanese investment for the current financial year. Where else can they turn to get the money? Because, money is what's going to drive a lot of this. The minister spoke about partnerships with states, for instance, to upgrade suburban railway networks. But again, where will the money come from?
So, as you rightly said, there is partnership from the states, there is PPP, there is the masala bonds, there is institutional funding. There is also a significant amount of non-tariff revenues that can potentially come in. To give you an example, right now the advertising revenue for railways is around 350 crores. As per rights, that can easily increase to 9,500 crore approximately. That's a significant amount of funding. That's almost 10% of the total capital expenditure. If we look at some of these other avenues, I hope we can cover up. Again, without having the absolute details, I can't be completely confident about how we can tie up those resources. but it seems possible. It seems like a plausible budget in that sense. So I wouldn't be too much worried.
Sure.
If you look at the Japanese funding that has come in for that's been promised for the high-speed rail, which is the bullet train, that's about 50% of the 98,000 crore that has been envisioned for that particular project, and that too at 0.1%.
Sure.
Yes, there are tied up clauses, and I will not go into those details, but funding is available.
Sure. Jayajit, let me quickly allow me to move to a different issue. The talk of the independent tariff regulator, the hint seems to be that the railway is going to move towards dynamic pricing for both freight and perhaps even for passenger trains, at least to some extent. What are the other big takeaways for you from the budget? Were you satisfied with whatever was announced in terms of progress for, let's say, the dedicated freight corridors? What about freight? Because freight has not been generating the kind of revenue that it needs to generate for the Indian Railways.
Yeah, let me just touch upon the first point, the Independent Rail Authority. I think the other takeaway from that particular step is that possibly the railways is looking at more private players coming in, because as long as the railways per se was controlling the fares, it will be difficult for a private player to operate in that environment. If there's an independent rail authority, then there's a possibility of private players finding it more attractive to get into this market and running trains based on an independent pricing authority. Having said that, the other key takeaways that I look at is a large infusion of technology being brought in. And technology not just in terms of ICT, which is the SMSs and on-demand complaint of toilets being cleaned up and so on, but also non-ICT technologies such as the bio toilets, the heavy axle wagons that are being proposed, which will increase the carrying capacity of the railways, and also the signaling improvements and so on, which will lead to densification of traffic and therefore a higher utilization of the existing assets, which will hopefully therefore lead to a larger amount of revenue coming in, which connects back to your question about how do we generate more revenues from freight. If we are able to use our existing rolling stock in a more efficient manner, then there is possibility of improving freight load on the railways. Also, the common complaint that you will hear from the users of freight on railways is that it is not really user friendly. It takes a lot of effort to be able to deal with railways to get the freight from point A to point B, and neither point A nor point B is a door-to-door delivery. So if the railways can move ahead and have a complete freight experience from door to door, I think that will lead to a lot of freight shifting back to railways.
Jayajit, out of time, but really good talking to you. Thanks for those quick insights on what we heard from Railway Minister Suresh Prabhu today. Thanks so much. It's time to take a quick break on that note, but before we go, CNBC TV 18's Alexander Matthew.